Hello everyone. Today in this video, I'm going to share with you 6 tips on how to improve your wildlife photography in just 30 days. And if I can travel in time and talk to my younger self, these are the 6 tips that I would have to tell him. By the way, I'm Tin Man Lee. I'm a wildlife photographer and currently I'm the judge for Nature Photographer of the Year, Bird Photographer of the Year, and Share the View. So before I even go into number 1 tips, I just want to tell my younger self, if I were just starting wildlife photography, to believe in yourself and have faith, because I believe that anyone who is dedicated, who has this passion, will do good once they understand these principles. So photography is a visual art, and for art, you want to be able to evoke emotion in the viewers. So a lot of the things we do in photography is to really understand how our photos make the viewers feel. So my number 1 tip is pay attention to the shadow. Harsh shadow in a photo can kill an image. Our eyes are always drawn to the highest contrast area, and if an image has a lot of harsh shadow, this bright and dark, people's eyes is always drawn to those, and instead of looking at what you want them to look at your photo. So how do you avoid that? Is don't rush to just get a photo. Rather, you have to ask yourself, where is the light coming from? And how good the light quality is. So what I mean by that is, if you want to take photos with front lit, which means that the sun comes behind you, you have to really look over your shoulder to make sure that the light is directly behind you when you take a photo, because when you're off an angle, shadow will form, and if the light is a little bit higher up from the horizon, you're not really aligning your light perfectly with the subject, then harsh shadow will be shown on your image, and that is not very pleasant. So you may ask, so is shadow always bad? Of course not. Shadow is actually wonderful. But the thing is, I would only make use of shadow when the sun is very close to the horizon. So near dawn and dusk, when the light is more saturated, the shadow is a lot smoother. So in those moments, I would stand at a location where the sun is not directly behind me, or if you're doing backlit, the light is not directly in front of me. Rather, I will move around to look for this gradual shadow, and that would really make the image pops and have this 3-dimensional feel. So when I'm doing judging, we are looking at how good the photographer is making use of the light. So the light angle is super critical. The better the light, the better the mood it is, and it is all about drama in photos. So the tip number 2 is never shoot downwards. So what do I mean by that is, a lot of the time when you go into a national park, you see these photographers setting up their tripod with their big lenses, and then when the animals show up, they shoot downwards. And if you are in a safari vehicle, a lot of the time you're also shooting downwards. Legendary natural photographer Franz Lanting, I think that's who pioneered this concept, is if you get lower and photograph the animal, it gives people a feeling that you are in their world, and instantly it feels a lot more intimate and powerful. And then if you're shooting from above, it gives people the feeling that you are shooting in a zoo. It is not good. So it's all about that feeling. So what I would suggest is to try to shoot as low as possible to begin with, and then check if the background works, and then you just slowly move up and adjust. But if you think that you are low enough, you are not. Because from what I learned in the last few years, the lower you get, the more powerful the photos are, most of the time. Number 3, if the background, which means the area behind the animal, if the background is distracting, if it is not perfect, the photo is not gonna work. It is as harsh a reality as that. So no matter how wonderful the behavior, the action are, if you look through your viewfinder and see that the background has these branches coming out, or you're shooting out at a bird with all this sky and branches and leaves all over the place, the photos are not gonna work. And it just shows people that this is amateurish. And it took me quite a few years to really accept that reality. It is when the background is perfect, people just react to the photos much more. So in the last few years, I've been trying to think about locations where I can have a higher chance to get a cleaner background. And if you go to those places, I consider those places like a Michelin star location because it's so much easier to convey emotion when you capture certain special action of the wildlife and birds with this perfect background. So if you see that the background is distracting, don't shoot. Just try to look around and see where the animal is moving to, and then pre-visualize the shot and then get to that location. And otherwise, it's just super painful after the trip when you look at this amazing action and then the background is just ugly. So background. Number 4, don't always try to go to the location if the birds and the animals are just too skittish. I spend a lot of the time locally and even in other places where people have mentioned about some sighting of the animal. And then I spend a lot of the time, I still remember one time I went to some places and I see these birds on a telephone pole, but when I drive even within half a mile, the birds would took off, and the reason is because it was hunting season and all these birds are super skittish. If you're a bird watcher, you can watch it from a binocular, seeing the bird, and it is all fine. But for photography, these are just non-ideal. So instead of trying to go to those places and spend a lot of the time waiting for that perfect moment, you might as well do your research and look for places where the animals aggregate. For example, during the mating season of birds, they have beautiful breeding plumage, maybe places in Florida. You can get a lot closer to the birds and get better photos. And if you go to Alaska in the summertime when the coastal brown bears aggregate waiting for salmon, you have a much higher chance to get good photos rather than just seeing a skittish animal when they're running away and in the very distracting background hoping to get a good photo. Number 5, composition is actually more important than you think. So you may say, oh, I'm just doing wildlife photography, as long as I get the animals sharp with nice background, that's it. I was so wrong, because again, photography is a visual art and you really have to know how to convey that emotion. And a lot of the time, the emotion is triggered by how you make the viewer's eyes move along your image. So composition is how you can guide the viewer's eyes into the story of your photo. Pay a lot of attention to, for example, the rule of third, where you have the leading lines, you have the pattern, and also try to get the perfect composition in camera. When I first began, I thought, oh, I have so many pixels and I can always crop and it's fine. But after some years, I realized that whenever I have a photo that is full frame with minimal cropping, the quality is so much better. A lot of the time when I submit to photo contests, when I have so many pixels, it's almost full frame, the print will look much better. And if the judges or the editor find out that you just crop a lot and the image quality is falling apart, even if you have a good photo, you loses the chance for the photos to be published. And also, I just love that challenge of getting a full frame photo in camera. So quick pause. Before I go into tip number 6, I just want to let you guys know that if you want to work with me to improve your photography, definitely check out the link below where you can watch some of my free photography masterclass, and make sure to fill out a questionnaire so that I can learn more about your photography and I'll contact you if I think I can help you. Tip number 6. So in the famous book written by Walter Isaacson, Leonardo da Vinci, he talks about how Da Vinci always were testing new paintbrush, new canvases. So I believe that if Da Vinci lives in modern age, he probably will be testing new cameras all the time, or maybe invent his own camera. In the beginning, I thought, okay, photography is all about what is in the artist's eyes. However, this concept was actually not correct, because what we are doing is bird and wildlife photography, and a lot of the birds and wildlife, they are active in low light, in dawn and dusk, and because of evolution, a lot of the animals blend in with their habitat. If you want to increase your chance of getting a good photo, you really have to rely on better autofocus and good low light capability cameras. So in the beginning, I thought mirrorless was a hype, and I didn't use it until a friend let me use the camera, and then I realized that, oh my, the camera can track the eye of the bird and the wildlife, and it allows you to do a lot more than what I thought was possible. So for bird and wildlife photography, cameras and lenses do make a difference. So you don't need to buy the most expensive camera and lenses, but what I would suggest is, if you have an important trip coming up, don't hesitate to rent a camera or lens that you are curious about and just give it a try. If you don't like it, then you are just renting it for maybe a weekend or a whole week, and you can just return it and not think about it. But if you find out that the camera and lenses can help you to achieve something that you cannot, then it is super valuable, right? So these are the 6 tips that I would tell my younger self if I were able to fly back in time. If you like this video, definitely check out my recommendation of what I think is the best camera and why it will be useful for your photography. So see you in the next video.